The time is almost 4:10. It's Friday, the 1st of August 2025, and we're at Bethnal Green Library. Can I start by asking you to introduce yourself?
My name is Zeb Kasmani, full name Zebundisa. I was born in Kenya, and I did my main education over there up to O levels. I was supposed to go on to do medicine, but then I was needed at home because of my mother needed some support. We had 3 people being bedridden at that point. And so that went by the way, the A levels went away. And I went on to doing shorthand typing, and then before I knew it, when I had time, I just got into a bank job. And then after that, soon after, my brother gave us, my sister and myself, the opportunity to study in Canada, which was literally part of this was the experience of traveling and growing in that way rather than the actual education itself. And it was a very good 2 years that we had. It was a very educational one in all sorts of ways, in how to get around, how to look after ourselves, everything. And so that's the start of my life. Went back home, and then I came out here, and ended up in a bank job eventually, which lasted for 10 years. So I tend to have this continuity with my jobs. And I was there for 10 years, and then it was 93 when we were going for Hajj. We left, and then I came back. I was starting to wear my scarf, and I started feeling uncomfortable. And that was, so then I had 3 years off where I started studying Quran and Arabic language, self-study, but it was there, little bits. And ended up with 3 years later thinking maybe I should do computer studies, because I didn't know computers at that point. And I went in, and it started off with level 1, level 2. And when I reached level 3, part of the condition was that we had to do a work experience for 3 months. And I told my husband, I don't want to go out there in the rat race again. So he suggested to me to write off to charities and see whether I could get in one of them. I happened to write to Muslim Aid. And I was called in for an interview by the managing director, who was Mahmoud Al-Hassan at that time. I think he got attracted by seeing that I'd been in a bank for 10 years or something. So anyway, he said we normally we don't take less than 6 month work experience, but we'll give it to you, can come in. So I started. And at that point, there were very few people. Muslim Aid was literally 4 staff. There was the managing director, there was the IT person, there was 1 overseas person, and there was a part-time accountant, and maybe a couple of regular volunteers who would come in. And there was Sister Yasmin was the assistant to the trustees. And that was it, that when we were housed there in Dixwell Street, which is for the use of Islam's building. And I think he had let Muslim Aid use the top floor. So that's where we were. And that's where I started. When I got there was nobody to teach me anything, so I had to find my way around. There was a lot to do, because in a way I had to teach myself along the way. So I found I was told to get on with donations. So any donations arriving, the different types of donations, eventually, well, to cut the story short, what I ended up doing eventually was I started writing notes of how to process them, what step by step, what needed to be done. And this all came about because the busiest period of Ramadan and Qurbani was approaching quite quickly. And that's the time when all the volunteers come in. I'd never worked with volunteers. I didn't know my first thing. So I had to then get to know how to deal with volunteers. I had to teach them, oversee them, in fact, interview with them and take them on as well. And work with the system, which was a very quaint, old system in computer system there, which I learnt, but eventually it had to be changed because it wasn't really good enough. There's a lot of new things I did at the time, which was I jumped the gun over here. So I was there in the deep end. So what happened was, after 2 weeks, Brother Mahmood said to me, "Well, would you like to work here?" And I said, "Yeah, okay, I don't mind," because I hate interviews and I don't like to. So, but he was, keeping the charity in mind, he made me work my 3 months, and then he gave me a letter to say that I was going to be part PA and part donation, head of donations. And it was from that part, head of donations, which was more active role at that time for me, because he was quite savvy with doing his own work. It was that which really took most of my time, because I had to set up all the systems. There were standing orders that had been sitting there for 6 months, so I started processing them, find my way around, doing a system there as well. Gift aid had to be done, which was being done by a volunteer, but not on a regular basis. So it had to be documented, computerized. So all these things were, this is where the bulk of my work came in, because this is where I started to concentrate on. So that's my start. That's how I ended up in Muslim Aid.
And did your role stay the same? What other roles or what other jobs did you sort of take on?
So what happened was, in 1999, Brother Mahmood left, and so we had a trustee, Ibrahim Sir Muhammad. He actually came in as a caretaker, because there was nobody there in the seat there to oversee the organization. So he would come in his spare time and weekends, to look after to oversee the whole place. And his way was he was very quiet. He was a very quiet, humble person. Just observe everything, see what was in place, what needed to be changed, what could be improved. So that was his approach. Soon after he started, we had the Qurbani period come in. I didn't know very much about it. He didn't know, he knew even less. Alhamdulillah, we managed to move on and we got through. Blind leading the blind. And then from there, I had to be a bit more supportive in terms of the mailings that was done for Ramadan, for Qurbani, any other mailings for emergencies, etc. I was quite active, or Brother Ibrahim involved me quite actively in being in touch with the printers, in getting proofs back, proofreading, in terms of just the whole process. And then obviously on the donation side as well, there was a lot to be done. And as during the time we were growing, at the time, we actually had to move from Dixwell Street, so Brother Ibrahim Sir had to then start looking for another place to rent. He and then during, I think it was around 2000 as well, that they needed someone there, and he agreed to become the CEO at that time. So he was there from about that until 2006. And during that time, we changed from Dixwell Street. We found a place in Camden Town. We were there for 4 years. During this time, there was a lot of things that needed to be done. Things like to formalize, to be put into place, to be structured. So he actually, like simple thing like salaries was like an ad hoc basis. He was the one who put it into place so that at a certain date the staff over there had to be paid, etc. So those are the kind of things he kind of put into place. So built the firm foundation there. Then he suggested to the trustees that, and I think this is what happened, that Muslim Aid should have a home of its own, a proper building that, and suggested, I think, that gift aid funds could be, built as a fund to purchase a property from Muslim Aid. And this was done in the 4 years we were in Camden Town. This is where LMC building there for the 4th floor was identified, was bought off plan. So it was all being built until 2004 when it was completed, and Muslim Aid was the first one to move in there on the 4th floor. These are the kind of things that Brother Ibrahim Sir did. Up to that point, he was, constantly being engaged in. It's no easy thing to rent a place, to find a place, rent a place, find someone, somewhere where you're going to purchase a property. And this is with all other things going on as well. We had the 2002, oh gosh, I've got a blank now. What happened in 2002? the terror attack in New York. And then we had the 2004 tsunami. That was a big thing. So, and Qurbani, Ramadan, all those things were still going on. So it was a very busy time in every way. And I think by the time we came into LMC, we moved there and everything, we settled down. That's when Brother Ibrahim Sir then had started looking at what Muslim Aid could do, the future for Muslim Aid. And he was starting to make up plans for his vision was that Muslim Aid would have a standing, long-term running projects in a few countries, which would be like the sign of Muslim Aid there, and which is what he did. In 1999, he built up the project for houses after the Turkish earthquake. There was a huge earthquake in 1999. So we got Muslim Aid houses in Turkey there, which was something that... So he was very active in the humanitarian side as well. 2004, he actually went to Indonesia after the tsunami. Based on what he saw there, then our relief work went, relief aid was given there. And I think we were one of the few charities that actually had their aid being distributed there, because a lot of it was wasted from other charities. During that time, we had a change from the IT person who had been there, Shabir. He left, and Anwar Salim came on. And with him, I worked very closely with him too. He was the one who actually set up the systems that are maybe still being used now, I'm not sure, for processing standing orders, for processing the donations, all types of it, the card donations, standing orders, all the gift aid that was being done, or claims being made. And this was a lot of, he needed input from me to say, okay, this is what's needed here. Whereas, and then after that, it was a case of, okay, this is what I built. Now you test it and tell me where I'm going wrong, or what needs to be. So there was a lot of work done in that way as well. So my view always was that everything should be documented and systemized. So whoever comes in should be able to then pick up those notes or notebooks, things like that, and just be able to get on with it. Each person who comes in does not have to build the wheel again every time. So that was my outlook, and that's the way I went through my job.
Thank you so
The one
much.
thing about Dixville Street, I must say, was Brother Yusuf Islam, when he was around, not to be on his trips or something, he would actually lead the prayers there. We would always get together for a prayer. And subhanAllah, his voice is so beautiful. It was a pleasure. So I quite remember that very clearly.
Thank you so much. You've given me so much information. So you were there about 20 years, is that right?
Around 20 years,
Around 20
yeah.
years.
Yeah.
So you've mentioned one of the CEOs that you worked with. Were there other CEOs that you worked with closely over the years? And what was the difference in their leadership styles and what stands out to you the most?
So there were a lot of CEOs that went on, but I didn't have that close a relationship with them as I did with Brother Ibrahim Said, because I worked very, very closely with him. After that, Brother Saif came in, and that was 2006, and at that time there was quite a lot of change within Muslim Aid. His style was completely different and to what I had been used to. So in fact, at that point, my role as PA and as head of donations took quite a big change. And in the end, I actually ended up taking on another role, and that was in the overseas department. So I actually became a project officer. So that was something new for me, which meant then I was not that closely in connection day to day and with the CEO as much. But that was a new role for me, and it was completely different. Again, I had to learn all sorts of new things, an eye-opener as well. One of the things that, before I joined the charity, I had this impression, and maybe most people do, that charities, anybody can work there, that, it's run by volunteers, but actually that's not possible, because you need people who are committed, you need people who are there day to day, the continuity has to be there. And obviously those people we need to live. So that was a big concept change that I found in my mind once I started working there.
And how did your role change? So when you moved to the overseas department, what were the new tasks that you did?
So I was in charge of Kenya was one of the offices. So it was around that area that I was in charge of these offices, and I had to liaise with any projects that were given to Muslim Aid for approval, for funding. So that had to be scrutinized, questions asked back and forth, try to make sure that the funds are used properly, then follow up, the funds go, the follow-up of the funds, getting reports back. So those are the kind of things that had to be done.
And what drew you to stay at Muslim Aid for so long?
So then my role changed again before we go there. It's 2008. In fact, it was Brother Saif who suggested that I should become PA to the chair. And that's where my role changed again, and and that's where I ended up then for the next 9 years. So, and then it was a complete change, because then I was working in not so much with the day-to-day charity work, but on the other side with the trustees, and meetings and recording their meetings and arranging them and giving them support, which, whatever support that was needed. So that was a complete different role again. In terms of what made me stay on, since about I think it was 2007 or something like that. I know there was discussion between my husband and myself every 2 years or whatever that, I think time I should leave Muslim Aid now. And somehow there was always someone or the other there to kind of say, no, not the right time yet. And so that's what's happened. And before I knew it, it was 2017.
How would you describe the atmosphere or the culture at Muslim Aid when you first joined, and how did it change over time?
So when I first joined, it was very, very quiet. It was very Islamic. It was very religion based. We would address each other as brother and sister, and there was a lot of respect there. There was no kind of bantering going on, things like that. Between the brothers and sisters, etc. It was a very respectful kind of address. If we had to talk, we talked. It's not that we didn't, but it was all a different atmosphere to when I left, definitely. That it was there. That was the second thing. Was it was a very small place, so we had to multitask. So whatever had to be done, and we just got on with it. In terms of, I think the orientation was towards humanitarian work and more towards there rather than expanding the charity in its own right and becoming big and all that. So I felt that's my personal feeling. That's the big change from one to the other.
So were there moments or a particular moment you feel that the work that you were doing made a real impact?
I never ever thought of it that way. To me, I was always, especially when I first started, I had this feeling in me that I must give better than good measure than what I'm earning. And that was my focus rather than, am I doing something great? So
you've worked with many CEOs at Muslim Aid and different department heads while you were working as the PA to the chair. How did the transitions affect the organisation from your perspective?
There were a lot of very fundamental changes as well. So from where I started, I went through a rainbow of a lot of change. Each person coming in had to, they had their own way, their own style, they had their own ideas of what they wanted to do. I think the one thing that I would have appreciated is if whoever came in, if they first studied what was already on the ground and then moved on from there, that would have been, in my opinion, would have been better. Because, when you just come in and you start doing what you want to do, you might be throwing out a lot of good things that's happened. So, in terms of its continuation as well, sometimes you want to, if it's something good, you want to continue with it and improve on it. And that's what, so that there were major changes all throughout the years. And which is right, which should happen because you want to improve all the time. So.
What has it meant to you personally working in a Muslim charity?
So I was working in a bank where, to me, it was a rat race. There's a lot of backstabbing. There's all sorts of gossip. There's everything, all the wrong things. So when I came into Muslim Aid, it was really a big relief because there was nothing like that. We'd be sitting, a group of us sisters would be sitting there, we would have our lunch together. One of them left the room, nobody would say anything at all about, and that was so new to me. And I thought, oh, nobody's remarking on the person who's just left or what's happening. So it was, that atmosphere was really good. The respect that was within the organization for each member. And everybody is so conscious of the fact that they were working for a charity and why they were there. So that was completely different from what I'd been used to.
And do you feel that might have changed over time, or?
I think it is starting to change. It had changed by the time, yes, I was there. It was starting to move towards the center. Yes.
And did you see the organisation evolve in terms of how it supported the staff in faith practice, like prayer spaces, time for Ramadan adjustments and things like that? Was there?
Yes, that was one of the important things that was, very attractive for me, because I had, there was time to pray, and it was all understood why it was being done. The time was being taken. There's also, during Ramadan, during the summer months, we were allowed to adjust our timing, so we were coming in late and going home late. So starting at 11, 12 midday, and then working till 8 o'clock. And so all these adjustments were really helpful, because they, it worked around the religion and the work commitment. It worked well.
And did that practice stay until the time that you left?
Yes, it was still there.
Did you observe any efforts to involve younger generations or more diverse communities or more diverse Muslim voices in the organisation?
Yes, that had started as well, because as we got on more staff, so from 4 staff, we ended up with getting, I think when I left there were about 60 or something, 60 or 80. And so there were a lot of new people there, new faces, new diverse communities as well, diverse faces, and origins as well. Yes, so it had moved on.
I know you're going to have trouble to answer this question, but I want you to answer it, and I want you to think about it as well. What do you feel most proud of your time at Muslim Aid?
So there's 2 things. One is that during my first years there, the charity that I came into was quite a disjointed. It was just starting. It was almost like it was just starting off. It had been in operation from 85, but and when I joined in 96, it still felt like it wasn't properly formalized. So within the next 3-4 years up to the time where we moved into LMC, I felt that the charity actually got a proper foundation and started working as a charity, and then it had a stepping stone from where it could now grow and expand and do more work and do, because things that needed to be put in place had been put in place by Brother Ibrahim, and it was and I think that was a very, very important job that he achieved. I think it should be given credit for that, because this is where Muslim Aid then, for the next CEO and the others who came in after that, for them they didn't have to worry about where it was going to be, who's going to pay the rent, and looking for places and all sorts of things like that. The other thing was, for me personally, it was the fact that I managed to grow into the job and attend to things that needed to be done. For example, learning my way around making gift aid claims, setting up a system for it, setting up system for processing, dealing with volunteers. All these things were new to me, and in some ways, I would say I learned more from Muslim Aid. I gained and benefited from Muslim Aid a lot more than Muslim Aid did from me.
Well, my next question was going to be, what are the most important lessons that you've learned from your time at Muslim Aid, personally and professionally? And I think you've answered that, but is there anything else that you'd like to add?
I think the continuity has to be there. From staff who are there have to understand that they're not just a person there and then they're going to move on. When they want to leave the job, they'll just leave the job and go away, and somebody else will come and take over. No, that person needs to have a proper handover. They need to retain the good stuff. They need and improve on it, and they need to then, having studied what's there, then start bringing in things that are completely different, because that's the better thing to do. So that's what I would say. The continuity has to be there.
And are there people, teams that you worked with that left a lasting impression on you?
There were certainly very many good people. And I mean, top of the list, I have great respect for Brother Ibrahim Sayyid. That's already come through here, I suppose. Anwar Salim, he was very good, excellent at his job, very professional, and plus his ethos and everything was very good. Zakia was there. She's still there. Who else? There was... Brother Khan was there. Brother Khan came in as a volunteer in 98. He was one of my first volunteers there. And he was there every day, day in, day out. Until I think a couple of years later or something, when Brother Ibrahim Sir actually gave him a position there and put him on a salary. And he was quite happy to be just there on a volunteer basis, which was fantastic. And he was very effective as well. So there was Brother Khan. I hope you're going to be seeing him as well. The trustees, obviously, they have done a lot of work. They have, and this is all on a volunteer basis. They're given their time, their effort, their everything from the time it was set up. And certain of them I worked closely with was Brother Sir Iqbal Sakrani, Brother Mehboob Kantaria, Sister Uneza. She was the first female chair, last one before I left. So some of the trustees, yeah, certainly I worked closely with and I got to know them better. But on the whole, because I was working with them anyway, I was, Brother Faruqi was another one. He was very active. So yeah, lots of people that they've made Muslim Aid.
Thank you. And what advice would you give to the younger staff that are coming in, just joining the charity sector now?
Same thing what I said, continuity has to be there. They have to have this in mind that, somebody else has to carry on after them and leave the proper records behind to show this. Yeah, because otherwise it's like, how do you know what's happened before? I mean, recently I heard that, the records are going back only to 2010, and I thought, that's terrible. I was shocked to hear that.
And if someone asked you why you stayed at Muslim Aid for so long, what would you say to them?
Well, my roles were changing so much. It was almost like I was, in different jobs without actually moving away from the organization. There's so many CEOs that came in. There's so different leaderships as well. Different staff that were coming in. So in a way, I was actually, I was quite comfortable there in terms of I was able to practice my religion and yet, it was best of both worlds. So the one thing that I missed out in our conversation was that Muslim Aid actually won the Postal Award for mailings in 1999 or 2000. It was at the beginning of my time there, and the first time that I was doing these mailings, and so it was very comforting to know that. Very, something good that happened at the time. So,
Thank you so much.